made a mistake, obviously. It cost me everything, my life's work, everything. I made a mistake, and I've paid the price for it.
Hollywood doesn't just create legends. It's also the place where legends destroy themselves in an instant. A single slap on the Oscar stage, one racist tweet, a few leaked messages, or just one moment of uncontrollable anger. That's all it takes to wipe out a career that took decades to build. And today, we're looking at 10 stars who lost everything, not because of bad luck, but because of scandals they created themselves. Number 1. Thomas Gibson. For more than a decade, Thomas Gibson was the heart of Criminal Minds. As Aaron Hotchner, the calm, commanding leader who always kept control, Gibson became the face viewers trusted week after week. He didn't just act on the show. He directed multiple episodes and held a place that seemed almost impossible to replace. But behind that composed, disciplined image was a very different version of the man. Crew members often whispered that Gibson had a volatile temper, someone who could be incredibly professional one minute, but lose his patience the next over something as small as a script change. Most fans never saw it, but the people working beside him did. And then, in 2016, everything exploded exactly the way some had feared. During an argument with a writer-producer over a script, Gibson lost his temper and kicked the man in anger. At first, the studio suspended him a chance to let things cool down, but only a few weeks later, ABC and CBS delivered the final decision. Thomas Gibson was fired from Criminal Minds permanently. Old incidents were brought back into the spotlight, from a confrontation in 2010 to internal warnings the public had never heard about. The image of the perfect team leader collapsed in a single moment of uncontrolled anger. Since then, Gibson has stepped away from the spotlight, appearing only in a few small projects and living a much quieter life. A career built over 10 years, grounded in discipline and dedication, ended abruptly because of one outburst he couldn't take back. Number 2. Will Smith. Will Smith was once Hollywood's golden boy, a beloved superstar who could make audiences laugh, cry, and believe in magic, all within a single film. From The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to Men in Black and Independence Day, he built the image of a hero who was both charming and relatable. But everything changed in just 3 seconds at the 94th Academy Awards. When Chris Rock made a joke about Jada's alopecia, Will laughed along with the crowd, until suddenly he stood up, walked onto the stage, and slapped Rock across the face live, in front of millions watching around the world. The entire room froze. And when he returned to his seat and shouted, "Keep my wife's name out your f***ing mouth," it became painfully clear that this wasn't comedy. This was real. The consequences came immediately. The Academy banned Will Smith from the Oscars for 10 years. Several of his film projects were delayed or canceled, and he became a global target for ridicule. In a single moment of lost control, America's once perfect role model fell into the center of a storm. What made the incident even more striking was Will's later admission. In a video apology to Chris Rock, he said, "I was gone. I was consumed by emotion, not as an excuse," he insisted, but as the result of years of pressure, pain, and expectation building up inside him. A moment that looked like he was defending his wife ended up exposing layers of emotion he had hidden beneath the Hollywood spotlight. Today, Will Smith is still working to rebuild his image and career. But that slap, brief as it was, has become one of the most unforgettable moments in Hollywood history. Number 3. Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan was once the brightest young star in Hollywood. From The Parent Trap to Mean Girls, she wasn't just praised for her beauty and natural talent, she was seen as the future of an entire generation of young actors. America watched her grow up, believing she was destined to become a new legend of the screen. But when the spotlight shines too early, the shadows come just as fast. Lindsay plunged into all-night parties, alcohol, drugs, late-night chases to escape paparazzi, and a string of car accidents. She was arrested multiple times for DUI, violating court orders and failing rehab programs, transforming a teen icon into someone known more for scandals than for films. Hollywood began to turn its back. Directors complained she showed up late, forgot lines, and acted unprofessionally. Roles were canceled. Opportunities disappeared. And her attempted comebacks like Liz and Dick or the Canyons only made it clearer. Lindsay was no longer the Lindsay the world once adored. At the same time, family drama erupted everywhere. Her parents fighting publicly on TV, leaked phone calls, tear-filled interviews. Lindsay became the center of a media storm that never let her breathe. Every step she took was scrutinized. Every mistake became a headline. Eventually, Lindsay left Hollywood and moved to Dubai, searching for the peace she never had as a child in front of the camera. She tried business ventures, made occasional appearances on screen, and slowly rebuilt her life. But the golden career she once had never truly returned. Number 4. Paula Deen. Paula Deen was once the queen of Southern cooking, warm, funny, and beloved by audiences who saw her as the nation's grandmother of food television. She built a multi-million-dollar empire, hit TV shows, best-selling cookbooks, and a chain of restaurants that carried her name. Her success seemed untouchable. But in 2013, a single lawsuit brought everything crashing down. A former employee sued Paula and her brother, alleging a workplace filled with harassment and discrimination. During her court deposition, Paula admitted she had used racial slurs in the past, a revelation that sent shockwaves across the country. But what disturbed the public even more were the statements from other employees, who claimed Paula not only used racist language, but called them derogatory nicknames right at work. The story exploded into a full-blown crisis. Food Network ended her contract. Major brands pulled their endorsements. Walmart and Target removed all her products from their shelves. In just a matter of weeks, one of television's most beloved personalities became a nationally boycotted figure. Paula Deen later tried to rebuild her career with a YouTube channel and new restaurants, but her public image never fully recovered. Number 5. Cuba Gooding Jr. Cuba Gooding Jr., once the embodiment of explosive joy on screen, shot to the top of Hollywood the moment he won the Oscar in 1997 for Jerry Maguire. His ecstatic cry, "Show me the money," became one of the most iconic moments of that era. He went on to prove his talent in Men of Honor, Radio, and a series of emotionally powerful roles that made audiences believe he would remain one of the great faces of American cinema. But more than 20 years later, everything collapsed so quickly that many people didn't even understand what was happening. In 2019, a woman accused Gooding of unwanted touching at a New York bar. What seemed like a minor controversy at first suddenly escalated when more women came forward with similar stories. The number grew so rapidly that the media began calling it a Hollywood domino effect. And within those accounts, one detail immediately stood out. Many women said Gooding acted strangely when drunk, overly familiar, easily losing control, sometimes even being escorted out of events by security. These stories raised uncomfortable questions. Where is the line between friendliness and crossing boundaries? And did alcohol play a bigger role than anyone realized? In 2022, Gooding agreed to a plea deal, admitting to one count of forcible touching. He avoided jail time but was required to undergo behavioral counseling and remain under supervision for a period. If he complied, the charge could eventually be wiped from his record. The decision sparked controversy. Several accusers felt the consequences were far too light compared to what they experienced. After the scandal, Gooding virtually disappeared from Hollywood. He appeared only in a few small independent projects, with no major roles left to revive the brilliance he once had. Number 6. Megan Fox. Megan Fox was once the hottest name in Hollywood. After her breakout role in Transformers in 2007, she became a global icon, the face on every magazine cover, every red carpet, every major ad campaign. Hollywood saw her as the defining beauty of the 2000s. But everything came crashing down because of one interview. In 2009, during a conversation with Wonderland magazine, she was asked about working with director Michael Bay. Instead of giving a diplomatic answer, she compared him to Napoleon and even Hitler, calling him a chaotic nightmare on set. She admitted she liked him in a strange way because of his social awkwardness. But the comments were harsh enough to ignite a firestorm. Within days, the media tore her apart. Steven Spielberg reportedly demanded she be fired from Transformers, Dark of the Moon. Megan was suddenly labeled ungrateful, difficult, and a diva. Hollywood turned its back on her almost overnight. Studios stopped calling. The press mocked her relentlessly, a sex symbol created too quickly and destroyed even faster. But then, something no one expected happened. Years later, the public began to take her side. As Hollywood's sexism scandals unfolded and the Me Too movement exploded, Meghan's old interviews resurfaced. People realized how heavily she had been sexualized, disrespected, and treated more like an object than an actress. They saw that Megan Fox wasn't the diva the tabloids had painted her to be. She was a woman who dared to speak out against unfair treatment in an industry built to silence her. And from that point on, the narrative shifted. Megan Fox began receiving public support as a victim of the sexism Hollywood tried to bury. She may never return to A-list status like her Transformers days, but today, Megan is rewriting her story not as the sex symbol of the 2000s, but as a woman who survived Hollywood's dark side and reclaimed her own voice. Number 7. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was once the king of American television. With 2.5 Men, he became the highest-paid actor on TV, a comedy icon who seemed destined to dominate the small screen for years to come. But behind the spotlight was a life rapidly spiraling into darkness. Sheen drowned himself in drugs, alcohol, and all-night parties that lasted for days. Fights with girlfriends, trashed hotel rooms, and scandals involving adult film actresses turned his public image into a media circus. On set, professionalism faded. He showed up late, picked fights, and tensions with producer Chuck Lorre grew heavier by the day. And then came the breaking point. Charlie Sheen went on television and publicly insulted Chuck Lorre, calling him degrading names in front of millions of viewers. Hollywood froze. CBS shut down production immediately, and within days, their biggest star was fired from the very show that had made him a household name. An instant downfall. But the scandals didn't stop there. In 2015, Charlie Sheen announced he was HIV positive and admitted he had paid millions of dollars to keep it secret for years. Several partners claimed he didn't disclose his diagnosis before being intimate, triggering a wave of public outrage even bigger than before. From Hollywood's highest-paid actor to a performer barred by studios, Sheen fell into lawsuits, depression, and financial collapse. He tried to get sober, tried to rebuild, tried to find a way back, but Hollywood was no longer a place willing to open its doors the way it once had. Number 8. Armie Hammer. Armie Hammer was once seen as the perfect face of a future A-list star. After The Social Network and Call Me By Your Name, he had everything. A cinematic look, old-school charm, and a career rising straight toward Hollywood's top tier. No one imagined that just a few years later, his name would be attached to one of the most shocking scandals of the decade. In early 2021, social media exploded when bizarre messages allegedly from Hammer leaked online, describing violent fantasies, power-obsessed behavior, and even hints of cannibalistic desires. Hammer called the accusations complete lies, but that was only the beginning. Just days later, multiple women came forward, sharing disturbing experiences from their relationships with him. Emotional manipulation, sexual coercion, and extreme control. One woman even claimed Hammer called her his slave, demanding total obedience in every intimate act. That allegation stunned the public, turning the story from a private scandal into a nightmare of psychological power abuse. Within weeks, Armie Hammer's career collapsed faster than anyone believed possible. Every major film role was canceled. Brand deals vanished. His management and PR team dropped him almost instantly. And the documentary House of Hammer fueled the controversy further, exposing not only the allegations against him but also a long history of scandals within the Hammer family. From a rising star expected to join Hollywood's greats, Armie Hammer disappeared almost completely, leaving the film industry behind and taking regular jobs in the Cayman Islands just to make ends meet. Number 9. Roseanne Barr. Roseanne Barr was once the undisputed queen of American television. Through her show Roseanne, she became the voice of the working class, funny, blunt, sharp-edged, a woman millions of families saw themselves in. And when the series was revived after 20 years, it instantly became the most-watched show in the country. For a moment, it felt like Hollywood simply couldn't exist without her. But then, one tweet destroyed everything. In a moment of terrible judgment, Roseanne posted a racially offensive tweet aimed at Valerie Jarrett, a former advisor to President Barack Obama, comparing her to a monkey. Within minutes, social media exploded, and within hours, ABC made a decision no one ever thought possible. They canceled the entire show immediately. No negotiations, no waiting, no second chances. A career spanning decades disappeared in a single morning. Management dropped her. Sponsors pulled out overnight. And then Hollywood delivered the final blow. The Connors, the continuation of Roseanne's own show, premiered without her. Her character was written off, killed in the storyline, like a quiet but brutal erasure. Roseanne apologized. She blamed the sleeping pill Ambien. She insisted she never meant to offend anyone. But the public didn't buy it. Ambien's manufacturer even issued a statement that went viral across the nation. Racism is not a known side effect of our medication. From America's favorite TV mom to one of the most publicly rejected figures in entertainment, Roseanne Barr became the clearest proof of how destructive one moment, one tweet can be. Today, she lives on the fringes of Hollywood, doing podcasts and small projects. But for the industry itself, the door has closed on Roseanne Barr forever. Number 10. Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey was once considered one of the greatest actors of his generation. 2 Oscars, a 3-decade career, and the chilling brilliance of Frank Underwood in House of Cards made him a global symbol of cold, calculated power, a character the world feared and admired at the same time. Spacey wasn't just a star. He was one of the few actors who defined an entire era of television. And then, in 2017, it all collapsed, literally overnight. As the Me Too movement swept through Hollywood, actor Anthony Rapp came forward, accusing Spacey of inappropriate behavior when Rapp was just 14. In the days that followed, more men spoke out with similar allegations, painting a deeply disturbing picture of manipulation and abuse of power. And among those accounts was a detail that made the public shudder. Some said Spacey would slip into the tone, the authority, even the persona of Frank Underwood when dealing with them, as if he never truly stepped out of the role that made him famous. As if the character's power had leaked into the real world. Within days, Spacey's career disintegrated at a speed Hollywood had never seen. Netflix cut ties immediately. House of Cards rewrote its entire final season to remove him completely. The film All the Money in the World erased every scene Spacey had already shot and reshot the entire role with another actor. A move so extreme, it had no precedent in film history. Hollywood slammed every door shut. His reputation evaporated. Even though many accusations were later dropped or dismissed, and Spacey was acquitted in court, the damage was already done. The public, and the industry, had moved on without him. Kevin Spacey retreated from Hollywood, appearing only in small, independent projects, a faint shadow of the towering figure he once was. He had been one of the brightest stars of his time. Now, he stands as one of the most dramatic downfalls in Hollywood history.